So, I finally discovered a way to use the poison based builds for at least Robin, anyways, and I've been really enjoying it. He's a very versatile character because you can pretty much done the different elemental effects on different aspects of his gear, and you're going to see them actually pay off at the end of the day. It's actually pretty cool. But for this particular paradigm, what I've done is I've slightly modified my ice cold build and decided that I was going to add on the range side of things a little bit of poison just to basically, damage over time effects or add the damage over time effects on my enemy NPCs whenever we're fighting. And I think this is actually pretty cool because, yes, the poison elemental effect is not necessarily very good for all the factions, but there is something about the other factions that are susceptible to it that makes the game really fun. And that's the fact that it does a damage over time and also adds a specific small element of crowd control. This is something that I wanted to also have. So when I was using my, freeze build, where if you land some critical hits, you can pretty much freeze an enemy in place for a few seconds. I found out that this particular element will do something of a sort, not necessarily freeze them, but kind of put them in a state where they are kind of toxic in a sense and they start coughing, which stops them a little bit from attacking you. So that's really the cool side of things. Now, I got this idea from someone I was playing Heroic Assault with. They were running Robin too, and they were basically just melting and destroying all the different waves of enemies because you can land a bunch of AoE effects. You can also spread some of your effects to other nearby enemies depending on what an enemy is actually affected by, and you could see that actually pretty much propagate when you're playing with Robin. And I thought it was actually pretty cool, and I've started using it. And I want to go ahead and fine tune it and make sure that it's something that, I can count on in a sense and pretty much go by. Which brings me to another side of the conversation in terms of functionality for Gotham Knights. One thing Gotham Knights is actually missing, especially for a game that takes you in a place where you can make different builds back and forth, is some kind of a loadout system. Because of the nature of all the elements that you need to put into your specific gear set or your setup, I think it's very critical that a loadout will probably be the way to go, especially if you have different setups that you run when you're actually dealing with different factions. I mean, if you're playing against the regulators, you might have a bow staff or melee weapon that you use and you prefer than, say, maybe you're playing against the freaks, because you could be using a bow staff that is antithetical to dealing with the freaks. Like whenever I have the fire elemental bow staff and I see freaks, I have to actually run into a corner somewhere where they can't find me and then quickly switch my gear around to a bow staff that will be more potent in terms of damage towards the enemy NPCs. So I think this is something that really does come into place. Another way too that I think will probably mitigate this is running hybrid focus builds, unless you're just running crit and then everything just pretty much fades away once you touch them. But if you like to run the elemental build, if you like to run the builds that have the status effects, these are some of the challenges that you're going to face as you start to, maybe put together something that you prefer to run in terms of those elemental sides of things. But I thought I'd go ahead and highlight this. And for those of you who may or may not know, you could also use different, variations of this in your other characters, even if they're not Robin. I also did shortly use a little bit of the poison elemental effect with Red Hood as well. And that's where I saw it deleting a bunch of bad guys. But I was like, if Red Hood is applying the damage over time much faster, I don't think anybody else would be able to do it as good as him, which is quite true because, the way he does apply the DOTs in terms of his different momentum abilities and so on and so forth really makes it very interesting. But seeing the way Robin is able to spread a lot of these effects just really makes him quite one of the most dynamic characters that I've actually played in any video game, in a sense, especially a video game that has different classes of characters. So let me hear your thoughts if you actually use this gameplay paradigm. I'm very curious to hear how you guys go ahead to build and exactly what you guys are running. And if you have any other ideas or if you have any setups that you think have been super effective for you, leave them in the comment section below and I'll be very happy to take a look at them. Thanks so much for watching the video. I appreciate you guys' time and audience, and hopefully we'll talk pretty soon in another one. Peace out.
Another win for Robin.